Hey Aquanuts, welcome back to Tip Tuesday. This is episode 11. If you have not watched episode 10, you can do that up here somewhere, or if you want to go binge watch all of the episodes up until this point, you can go ahead and do it up there. There should be a card that you can click on up in this area somewhere. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Tip number 1, use a chlorinator, not a floater. Now, in this video right here, we have got one of my good buddies, the pool boy in the house, showing you how he's putting chlorine tablets in his various chlorinators that he services, but you don't have to do it like this. You can just put it in there, but use a chlorinator to chlorinate your pool. The reason why you want to use that instead of a floater is if a floater gets too close to the edge of the pool, it could get sucked into the skimmer and you could actually have it flip over, drop the chlorine tabs onto the bottom of the pool, and it could ruin the surface of the pool as well as the walls. Well, if you use a chlorine feeder, which is what we're talking about right here, another video, my pool boy in the house right there, you don't have the same problems because it just drips the chlorine into the line and it puts it into all of the jets, just a little bit of a drip at a time. Tip number 2, and I'm going to really just touch on this, but there's really only 3 different chemicals that we use in swimming pools to sanitize and oxidize the contaminants in the water. Number 1 is a product called biguanide, or a chemical called biguanide. It was invented by a company called Biolabs and is most commonly sold under the name brand Aquasil. This is what people are calling or rediscovering as peroxide pools, and they do work great. They are a very small number of swimming pools that are actually serviced and actually use the biguanide system. And if you do use that, I recommend going with the Aquasil route because they're the ones that came up with it probably 4 decades ago or half a century ago or whatnot. And they're really good at what they do. So use that product. Number 2 is a chemical called bromine. Now, bromine is really good for fountains. It's a little bit more expensive than chlorine, a little bit more expensive than biguanide, but it's a really good product. It doesn't need to be stabilized like chlorine does, and people use it for indoor pools and fountains. And number 3, and by far the most used and the best, in my opinion, is chlorine, because chlorine is the only chemical that both sanitizes and oxidizes. The other 2 have to use 2 different chemicals to actually make that happen. And like I said, this is a very broad topic. I could do an hour on these 3 things. But all of your other things, your UV systems, your salt systems, your ionizers, putting copper in, peroxide, all of that falls under those 3. Most of them fall under the chlorine, which is the salt system, the ozone, the UV, all of that falls under chlorine systems. Number 3, talking about this because hurricane season is coming up. Do not drain your pool. Even if it gets to the point where the pool is overflowing, it's raining, hurricanes are coming through, and your pool is about ready to overflow, just let it overflow. Wait until the groundwater goes down before you start draining the water out of your pool. And here's why. If you have a concrete pool or a fiberglass pool, then you run the risk of those popping out of the ground. It's the same principle as why boats float, because you're displacing water. You've got a lot of groundwater that is pushing up. The water in the pool is actually pushing it down, keeping it in place. So even if it's overflowing, you want it to be kept in place. If you have a vinyl liner pool, then that could actually push the liner up, and you can see some pictures of that right here also, and you don't want this to happen to you. Tip number 4, and this is something that who has been traveling a while and currently traveling right now, have been experiencing. When you go to a resort, a hotel, or whatever commercial type of public pool, bring your own test kit and test the water. And if it's nasty, don't swim in it. I don't really trust most municipalities to take care of commercial pools well, so I check behind them. And if it's good, then I'll go swimming. I'll even go look at their pump and their filter and all of that, and I'll make sure that it is working properly up to snuff before I let my kids swim in it. I think episode 3 or 4, we actually tested a public pool while I was in it on video. So go check that out. That might be episode 4 of Tip Tuesday. Tip number 5. The only reason I'm bringing this up is I am currently in Florida. Love Florida. But in the Facebook groups, we saw a guy jump into his pool that had an alligator in it. He swam down, he grabbed the alligator and started swimming with the alligator. So tip number 5 is don't swim with alligators. That doesn't sound like a very smart thing to do, but I know all of you, at least most of you, know not to do that. The one guy that was swimming with the alligators, God bless him. And for your bonus today, failure is the condiment that gives success its flavor. Truman Capote. I think I said that right. If you have enjoyed watching these Tip Tuesdays, we're at episode 11 now. Please hit the subscribe button and go ahead and give us a like, a follow, a comment down below in the comment section really helps us out. If there's a question that you want me to answer, go ahead and leave it down there in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I've earned your subscription. Have a good day. We'll see you next week.